From the EPR Creation Studio, this is Unconquered with Doc Staples. As always, this podcast brought to you by EPR Creations, bringing you the best of internet marketing and website development for an affordable price. By Garage Makeovers, the #1 garage remodeling company in South Florida. Justin Galloway of Benchmark Mortgage, serving Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Louis Marquez of Momentum Realty in Jacksonville, Florida, and Shenandoah Real Estate in the Research Triangle of North Carolina. So we're about 10 minutes remaining in the Florida State SMU game at the former President Gerald Ford Stadium, where Florida State is getting pounded. And you all know I picked Florida State to lose this game, but man, this team really finds new ways to establish new lows seemingly every week. I mean, they didn't quite do it last week against Cal, but that was more Cal's doing than their own. And look, this is just a bad football team. And yeah, it's just a bad team. It's a team that when one thing, so this team in some ways reminds me of my golf game when I'm not playing all that well. And that's okay. I'm hitting it out of bounds off the tee and I'm losing strokes that way. So I'm going to focus on getting better off the tee, and then, finally hit it well off the tee that day. And then I'm, chunking a few wedge shots, and I finally get the wedge shots right. And then I hit another couple out of bounds. And then, when I finally get stuff really rolling, that's when I start, four putting. This team finds new ways to step all over itself over and over and over again. And, I know right now the popular thing among the fan base is just to blame DJ Uyunglele. And based on the games coming into this game, there was a lot of reason for that. He had been really bad. And you all know full well what I have said on this podcast, that I was of the view that DJ should have been replaced at halftime of the Georgia Tech game, and at least see what you got there, because the level of play has been so bad. But honestly, tonight, first half, you got a pretty good half from him. First half, 8 of 15 for a touchdown, 145 passing yards. You had the one pick, which really was not his fault. That's a bad route by a wide receiver who, you've got a one-on-one with a safety on a corner route. Very, very simple. That means you've got to press his leverage, turn that into a little bit of a post corner, and then stick that a little bit, and then come flat to the sideline, and you're in great shape. You're going to be wide open. Instead, he just kind of rolls it and allows the corner to come up underneath him, doesn't come back to the football, doesn't fight for the ball, and gives up a pick. That's on the wide receiver. And I have no problem, by the way, with that call on 3rd and 2 there. You got to be aggressive. You're getting a one-on-one with a safety on one of your wide receivers who runs 10-6 or ran 10-6 in high school. You know what? You literally set up your offense to get those kinds of matchups, to create those kinds of matchups. And that's the thing. I mean, Mike Norvell's offense, what he talks about is this is an offense built for playmakers. The problem they have right now is they don't have any playmakers. At quarterback, really at running back, at wide receiver, definitely not at tight end. It's hard to run an offense built for playmakers and call for players, not plays, when you don't have players. And then you add to that the offensive line can't get out of its own way and, keeps having procedure penalties and holding penalties. And every time you have a good play, well, there's laundry on the field. I mean, the second drive, you've got a 5th-year senior left tackle who, was hyped up as an all-ACC type guy coming into the season, who false starts. And then your 5th-year senior center rolls the ball back to the quarterback on the snap. It's that stuff. If you do that stuff, if you keep doing that stuff, it really doesn't matter what your quarterback does. And then when you take that and you put that with a very average quarterback, well, what are you going to expect? And then you add to that this is a poorly coordinated defense. It just is. It's poorly coordinated, and there's poor communication. There's all sorts of evidence of some, issues with teaching, especially, among the safeties and communication between the safeties and backers and some of that stuff. I will say the backers have gotten better over the course of the year. Randy can coach. Now, they shouldn't have been in the position that they were in terms of talent and needing to basically coach a bunch of new guys this year. And, it took a little while for that to happen, but those guys are getting better. But in all honesty, my view is you need to seriously look at a complete overhaul of the defensive staff. And some of y'all are out there shouting about like the problems on offense. We'll get to that. But offensively, what we know, and I know some of you are just going to say, well, no, that's just Jordan Travis. No, look, Norvell is a good offensive mind. He's highly respected in the guild for a reason. But when you don't block well, when you're not fundamentally sound at that level, when you don't have playmakers, and when your quarterback isn't really a threat to do anything except for be a force multiplier for positive if things are going well, or really negative if things are not going well, then this is what you get. And then you combine that with, and here's where my real critique of Mike Norvell is right now. This team culturally is a total 180 from last year's team. It is difficult to watch these guys in terms of body language, in terms of just the kind of feel that this team has. And honestly, for those of you who don't do this and, as a job to make money to put food on the table for your kids, I'm not sure why any of you are watching this product right now. This is a good season to just fine tune that golf game, to, get your yard game upgraded, to spend more time with your kids. This is just watching this Florida State football team is sort of like drinking curdled milk. Like you have the sense that at some point it might have been good. It could have been good, but it's turned in such a way that it sure ain't going to be good from here. And it seems to be getting worse, and it stinks. And, all of those other things that go with that, watching this Florida State team is again, it's like drinking curdled milk. And I think this is a team where, honestly, I don't know how much a lot of these guys like each other. They certainly don't play for one another the way that you would expect. And the kind of celebrations and things that you see when a team is not winning. Like, guys, that's enough of the lockdown gesture when a wide receiver drops a pass when you're down 28 points. Like maybe you can just act like you've been there before, like you've been beaten, the receivers dropped a pass before. Maybe you don't commit a personal foul pushing a guy out of bounds when you've got a chance to get a stop. Maybe you don't do just egregious things to cost yourself stops, to cost yourself drives. Pay a little attention to detail. Do the things that you need to do to get that done. And here I'm watching another positive play, 5 minutes left. Nice screen pass there for Jaylen Brown. And predictably, you get a flag on the field, so that's going to come back. I mean, that's just the way this team is. They find ways, no matter what, they just find ways to get in their own way. And in this game was there for the taking. This was a team that was in position in the second half. Opening drive, you get a first play run to Toafili. First down. Go into you get another nice play. good situation, and then you throw a look to Morlock. Ball goes straight through his hands, hits him in the face mask, bounces straight up in the air, and turns into an interception. Look, you can't throw that football any better if you are DJU. You're supposed to put that ball, like the place you're supposed to put that ball is on his face mask. That's what you're supposed to do. That's exactly where that ball was. And it goes through his hands, bounces off his face mask. As far as Toafili's concerned, this is an Office Space moment for him. What is it that you would say that you do here? Because you don't catch. You've never really blocked. So why are you out here? And this is 3 games in a row where, 3 out of the last 4 games, I'll say, where Morlock has been a serious problem with the inability to catch the football. And in this case, you're finally starting to get push on your offensive line. You're finally starting to create some momentum to get yourself into good position. And then you've got Morlock that does his thing. It's almost, at this point, it's so bad that you almost want to do some point shaving investigation of some of these guys. Because it's hard to explain this stuff. How many passes did Morlock drop last year? He's dropped, 7 this year? Something like that? And these are not difficult catches. So the thing is, at that position, they finally are at a place where they can just play Landon Thomas. And as far as I'm concerned, Morlock can go ahead and just sit for the rest of the year. There's really no reason to play him the rest of the way. The future at that position, Landon Thomas, go ahead and play him. Couldn't have played him earlier. He got dinged up in camp and all that, wasn't quite ready. He had the one really positive big play downfield. He caught a touchdown in this one. He shows some willingness to block. Let him make the mistakes. Let him keep developing. It's time to move on. And the same with several other positions. Now, the biggest problem that they have is moving forward. They don't have enough guys at key spots where you go, yeah, that guy's going to be fine next year. They need to just move on to him. If you look down the roster at the 2025, 2026 guys that you're going to be depending on, there's not enough of those guys who you say, oh, they need to make space for that guy to be able to play, to develop. Because what you're looking at on a lot of those guys is, they need to recruit over that guy, especially at edge. So what do you do? Oh, it's just ugly. There's really just not much to say there. At a certain point, you look at this and you wonder how much more there is left to say. I've said my piece to some degree, but I look at this and I don't see answers on this roster. They played a lot better in certain respects in this game, and they still lost 42-16 because the moment that they're in position to drive the field and tie the football game, ball goes right through the hands to the face mask, bounces up in the air. But even before that, end of the half, you get multiple shots at the goal from inside the 5-yard line, and you decide to run quarterback. I think that was outside zone. I'm not sure. I need to go back and look at it. You run quarterback zone, I think, and DJ should have scored on the first one, but your left tackle missed the block. So what do? You come back and you say, you know what? That should have walked in. It's going to make that block the next time. And you call the same thing, and it gets absolutely swarmed on 4th and 2. I get the reason you call that. I think that's a blown call from the coaching staff on that. But beyond that, if you're going to run DJU down there, you just need to tush push it. If you know it's 4 down territory and you're on the 2, tush push it from 3rd and 2, get it down inside the 1. You're probably going to score if you tush push it twice. Just do it. The one thing that guy can't seem to do, though, is run like an athlete when it comes to running the football as a quarterback. And they can't run power, so you can't run that down in there. He doesn't have the burst to put his foot in the ground and get upfield on that. I get why you run it, but if you're going to run that, put Cam Davis in there and run it out of the Wildcat. Cam Davis can take snaps. He can handle the football. Do that. Or if Cam, you don't want to do it with Cam, do it with Toafili. I get that you've got a 250-pound battering ram, you think, that should work for that, but at some point you've got to go based on the data you've got. That's blown on the coaching staff. Total blown scenario there. And then instead of it being 14 all at the end of the half, you go in down 14-9 because they snap it through the end zone. Should have been 14 all. Then you get the ball to start the second half. You have that scenario play out, and you go from what should have been, at worst, 17-14 Florida State, probably 21-14 Florida State. If you just execute in the running game like you were on the first couple plays of that drive, and you catch the football for a 20-yard gain there for Morlock, 15-yard gain, you're in field goal range in a couple more plays, and you've got a chance to score, and you're going ahead in this game. Instead, it's 28-9 rapidly. 28-16 after the third quarter. And that game's over at that point because this team isn't scoring 28 points. So, that's what this comes down to. So, and I've also gotten some word that, we're going to see a couple players making some business decisions after this game. And we've seen this sort of thing. We've seen this sort of thing before from other teams this year. And, there apparently is at least one good player who's looking at this and saying, it might be time for me to make a business decision. It's a new era of college football on that. And, frankly, it's just the way that it is. And here you have a 4th and 3, and they're able to get a second effort and put the game away. Unreal. It's just, and then you look at the third DJU interception, and that interception sort of typifies the whole season. A bad decision by the quarterback to throw into triple coverage, followed by an interception, followed by a wide receiver who comes in and goes for the strip, and then just gets shaken off as the linebacker is apparently just beast mode and is a more physical, better player than what you've got on your roster, and then just takes that in for the score. This is what you are. This is what Florida State is this year. And frankly, I'm not sure that this team doesn't get beaten by either one of Willie Taggart's teams, which is a major indictment for year 5 of Mike Norvell. Now, I will tell you, Mike Norvell, I still believe, is one of the best coaches in college football. This happened to a very good coach in Kelly at Notre Dame. But Mike Norvell has to make some hard decisions moving forward in terms of the composition of the coaching staff and in terms of what he's going to do to turn the culture of this program around after this. You can't make those changes right now. It doesn't get better. But you do have to make those choices as the season winds down. And as I look at this coaching staff, one of the things you have to assess is, if I was rebuilding this coaching staff from scratch next year, how many of these coaches would I want on my staff? That's a real question. And if it came down to it, I think right now, if you had the choice of completely clean house and start over with 10 new assistant coaches, or bring, just separate from 2 or 3 of them, you probably need to clean house completely. Now, I don't think that actually would be the right call to get rid of all 10 coaches. I don't think that would be the right call. But I do wonder whether or not you need to get rid of more than half of your coaching staff in order to put yourself in the position to build forward, to do what you need to do. That's something that Mike Norvell is going to have to seriously consider. And you all know, look, those of you who've listened to this show for a long time know I am very, very hesitant to call for coaching changes. I don't call for guys to get fired as a rule. The last time I did this was when I basically said Willie Taggart needs to go. And that whole staff, minus a couple guys, that staff needs to be given pink slips. It was that bad then, and it's at a point now where I believe in the head coach, but I think there need to be some serious decisions made about who actually belongs on the staff with that head coach next year. And he needs to be given the freedom to end some of those contracts, and FSU needs to eat some of those contracts, and then be able to put up the kind of coin that they need to do to get guys that should be coaching at Florida State at some of those spots. But this is where the program is. And you look at Norvell, and I think he knows that. He does not look the same on the sideline right now because I think he knows full well that there's stuff that needs to change, and it can't change right now. So frankly, I mean, this is where you are. You are in the middle of a US Open round as a golfer where you just shot 47 on the front nine. And only thing is, in this tournament, you're not allowed to withdraw. You're not going to compete for the tournament. You have no choice but to finish out the tournament. And the question is, what kind of score are you going to shoot on the back, and what are you going to be working on to get better for the next time? It's where you are. It's not a whole lot more to say on this one. I mean, they threw the football well in the first half, actually. They did what they needed to do on the RPOs and other things to be able to open up the running game, and then they were able to start getting some movement in the running game, but they just could not find ways not to interfere with themselves. 10 penalties, 79 yards. Each of those penalties just devastating. Wild. The one positive, I will say there's one positive about this whole thing, is that they had the good sense to wear the white uniforms with white helmets for this. So at least they didn't look like Florida State in terms of uniforms or appearance on the field either. So when, posterity finds this footage 20, 30 years from now, at least it doesn't look like Florida State. So, it's maybe a little bit less embarrassing at that point, but this is where the program is. I'd wear alternate unis the rest of the year. That's what this team deserves. Anyway, we'll wrap there. I'm going to have to do a film session on this one because it's, there's a lot. There's going to be a lot to break down. All right. Talk to y'all in a few days. If you've been enjoying this podcast, please leave a 5-star rating over at Apple Podcasts and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Post and repost episodes on social media and tell a friend. And if you haven't left a review in a while, do it again. It really does help the visibility of the podcast. Before we go, I'd also like to thank my advertising partners once more. That's EPR Creations, Luis Marquez of Momentum Realty in Jacksonville, Florida, Shenandoah Real Estate in the Research Triangle of North Carolina, Garage Makeovers, the #1 garage remodeling company in South Florida, and Justin Galloway of Benchmark Mortgage, serving Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. You can also stop by the Unconquered Shop at unconqueredpodcast.com, where you can buy stickers, pins, magnets, t-shirts, and other swag. I am especially grateful for those of you at the Dynasty level. That is Brian Leininger, Dave Blair, Jack Horton, Jonathan Kennedy, Lee Caswell, Travis Smith, and Tyler Kashishki. You all are far more generous than I deserve. Thanks to you all. You all are far more generous than I deserve. I'm really grateful. Thanks to you all. This has been Unconquered with Doc Staples. I'm your host, Jason Staples. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support. I made this.